And I think I read this, and it's again, this is going back to the book The Gift from the Sea. So the whole idea of this book, just so I should share, is she was a mother. She's married from a very public, well-to-do family, which then comes with its own slew of frustrations because you're in public all of the time and this, public image and everything. And so she talks about she had to leave and go to the sea to write this book and collect her thoughts of how she could herself deconstruct what her patterns of living were in order to get to a place that felt authentic for herself. And so each chapter is mirroring a different type of seashell and what that seashell spiritually represents for her. And so in the intro, she just talks about being at the beach, and this is the last paragraph. And she says, the sea does not reward those who are too anxious, too greedy, or too impatient. To dig up for treasures shows not only impatience and greed, but lack of faith. Patience, patience, patience is what the sea teaches. Patience and faith. One should lie empty, open, choiceless as a beach, waiting from a gift from the sea. Waiting for a gift from the sea. And so I just loved that idea of the patience and what shows a lack of faith. And if we're talking about, again, however you identify spiritually, or even if you're atheist, none of that really matters. But this idea of having a lack of faith in your vision. And I am rewriting that narrative for myself. If I can think it, I can create it. If I can think it, it is already done. It is already done. I am the one that can decide to multiply bullshit, or I can simplify and I can multiply and I can get there, and I can get there faster. And when I say faster, I mean, where it's like the most direct way is through. That doesn't mean it's easy. If you've read any hero's journey, you know that in order for them to be the hero, in order for them to be triumphant, there is challenge after challenge after challenge. So I actually feel like the more you are feeling challenged, you're feeling uncomfortable, that you are out of your comfort zone, you know that you are enduring that wave from the ocean over and over and over again. You are changing your pattern of living. You are fighting to simplify your pattern of living in order to multiply. And I think so many of us, again, like I get into this place where it's like future outcome. It has to be my vision. Why isn't it here yet? And this, you guys have heard me bitch about this before. It's like all of I know I always joke about white women, and sometimes people are like, I don't know why it has to be about race. And I'm like, you're missing a joke. It's a comedy joke. So gentle reminder, but just all of, the white women named like Michelle on the internet that are like, I'm going to teach you how to manifest. Like, I just manifested a beach house in 2 days, or whatever it is. It's like, don't listen to that bullshit. Anybody that's hawking you anything like that, to me, is a charlatan, and they're full of shit. Okay? Because now that's not to say that you can't learn to attract things a lot faster. But again, that's when you're in that alignment. When you are in alignment, when you're making those daily investments, and you can stop focusing on the future outcomes, and you're looking for the things that will multiply your vision, because you're focused on what your final quote unquote vision or your outcome is. You don't ever get to that place, by the way. It just keeps unfolding. So, you're welcome. But when you're in pursuit of those things, so I do believe that there are things that we can attract faster, right? When you're putting your focus and things there. But if you think that you're going to go from like busted broke, okay, and then all of a sudden you're just going to figure out how to manifest like $100,000 in 30 days, you're out of your mind. And that's also not spiritual alignment. That's not how the law of the universe works. That's why I talk about this all the time. That's why we have seasons, right? Even though as many of y'all that are like, I'm ready for like sweater season. It's time. Well, it's still 90 degrees and humid in Georgia. Okay. So sorry, where it's like, you cannot rush the process. You cannot keep digging on the beach for treasures and looking for something. You have to be patient. It's making those daily investments, right? I'm going to look through this really quick and see if there are any of these other, I just was like, so just like heated and on one when I was reading this. Let me see. Harmony. Oh yeah. Something else, another question. So again, when you talk about this, the pattern of living, another sentence that I want you to write down is the shape of my life is. The shape of my life is. And what is it now? What is it really? Be honest, okay? Because the only person you're going to bullshit is you, right? And then, then really a dealer's choice. I'm not going to tell you exactly what to do, but then, I would encourage you could then do, I want the shape of my life to be, or I want the shape of my life to feel. I always feel like a feeling is a really good way. Visualization is good too, but I also feel like embodying that feeling. How do you want to feel? Because, it's the same way of like, if you just keep smiling, right? Like, I mean, if you're really having a mentee be, smiling is only going to stave it off for so long. But there is something to that, right, of like tricking your brain. And so I think it is that of like the shape of my life is, and I want to feel, right? How do you want to feel in your life? Something else that I think is great. I love this. She said, inner harmony is essentially spiritual. And inner harmony can also be translated to outward harmony. And this was like a Socrates prayer, which like, who's out there just quoting Socrates? But I loved this. May the outward and inward man be one. And underneath I wrote that, untangle your mess. And I loved that because I talk about that in my teaching of like, in coaching of where are you and where do you want to be? Or where are you and who are you? I think that's always better because sometimes we think what our vision is and we think that's what we want. But then when we really get back to that heart center place that stings, we're like, oh, the roadmap was already here. I didn't have to work so hard. But it was taking in all that other shit over and over and over again that convinced me that it was something else when really I've known all along, right? And so it's really, that's what this idea of living in alignment is, and getting to that place where your vision is clear and where you can continue to simplify in order to magnify. You can get to that place faster. You can go through faster because you're aligning who you are on the inside with what your life is like on the outside. And one would be shocked at how hard that is. I mean, that's the other thing. It's like, you would think these things, like in principle, it's like, yeah, this sounds pretty easy, and knock a couple things off the list and get to the gym and everything will be great. But it's almost like the more you simplify, the more you realize how much shit you've been holding on to. Right? Like it's almost, I sometimes don't like talking about like clean eating and diets and shit like that because food is a big one for everybody, but just stay with me on this one. It's almost like if you do start to quote unquote eat clean, like now I feel like I used to, because I was hungover all the time, you're eating so much processed food, and sometimes processed food tastes good, right? Like there is a time and a place for it, sure, I think, at least a balance, right? But when you start to peel back and you're eating whole foods and you're eating foods from, not Whole Foods trademark, but just whole foods in general, and you're eating like root vegetables and greens and things that come from the earth, there's this uncovering more and more and more, and it almost changes your body makeup. You can feel the way in which your body adapts and changes to things that feel good, and how many times you can click that dial to feel better and better and better. And that's a weird place to be. That's a lot of this simplify to multiply, that when you start to multiply, sometimes you're like, well, this is fucking weird, right? Because then we get to this place of, I'm happy, now what? And even if that's, you don't struggle with, a lot of us grew up in a place of chaos. That's what we're used to. And so when things aren't chaotic, when you create this sense of abundance for yourself, that is quiet, that is inner peace, that's outer peace, right? Even if you didn't come from those backgrounds, it's weird, because what do we do when we get with people? Oh, here's the thing that's not going right. Oh, we got stuck at the airport. Oh, so-and-so's got this going. Oh, so-and-so's bothering me. Oh, so-and-so's. Right? Like I struggle with that sometimes. Like when people, it's almost like, you're at a dinner party and like everybody complains and it gets to you and you're like, yeah, shit's hard, right? Like you don't, like it's like I don't want to be obnoxious where I'm like, actually, I feel like I've chosen my heart, and so it's just kind of like daily stuff. But like, really, I'm feeling pretty good, you know. And so it is. You will be surprised at how much again the shape of my life is, and I want to feel that when you begin to feel that way, you can actually dial it up more and more and more and more, right? So, and I love this. Okay, so the shape of my life or the frame of my life, right? If the frame of your life does not foster simplicity, that's something that we have to look at, right? So, for instance, she says, and again, this was written in 1955, okay? Like, wow. I mean to lead a simple life, to choose a simple shell that I can carry easily, like a hermit crab, but I do not. I find that my frame of life does not foster simplicity. My husband and 5 children must make their way in the world. The life that I've chosen as a wife and a mother entertains an entire caravan of complications. It involves a house in the suburbs and either household drudgery or household help, which wavers between scarcity and non existence for most of us. It involves food and shelter, meals, planning, marketing, bills, and making ends meet in 1,000 ways. It involves not only the butcher, the baker, and the candlestick maker, but countless other experts to keep my modern house with its modern simplifications: electricity, plumbing, refrigerators, gas stove, oil burner, dishwasher, radios, cars, and a number of other labor-saving devices functioning properly. It involves health, doctors, dentists, appointments, medicine, cod liver oil, vitamins, trips to the drugstore. It involves education, spiritual, intellectual, physical, schools, school conferences, carpools, extra trips for basketball or orchestra practice, tutoring, camps, entertainment, camps equipment, and transportation. It involves clothes and shopping, laundry, cleaning, mending, letting skirts down, 1955, and sewing buttons on, or finding someone else to do it. It involves friends, my husband's, my children's, my own, and endless arrangements to get together, letters, invitations, telephone calls, transportation, hither and yon. Again, this was written in 1955. Here we go. For life today in America is based on the premise of ever widening circles of contact and communication. It involves not only family demands, but community demands, national demands, international demands on the good citizen through social and cultural pressures, through newspapers, magazines, radio programs, political drives, charitable appeals, and so on. My mind reels with it. What a circus act we women perform every day of our lives. It puts the trapeze artist to shame. Look at us. We run a tightrope daily, balancing a pile of books on our head. Baby carriage, parasol, kitchen chair, still under control. Stay steady now. Steady. So, I hope you're lit up, even though I can't read, because I was just like, yeah, again, that she felt that overwhelmed in 1955. How do you create a life of simplicity in order to multiply the things that you want and whatever that means to you when life is chaotic? And now we live in a world where, like, you don't even have to like go to the picture shows, see, and like see the newsreel at the beginning of it. You wake up, you pick up your phone, and you open it, and it's just like, ah! That's all social media is. You open it, and every single reel you go to is just somebody screaming at you, right? Or somebody just like singing a folk song in their mirror. That's it. Okay? Maybe a cooking tutorial, 1 or 2, but that's it. So that is the homework I want to leave you with. I could talk about this literally for hours. So if you want to, call me, because I'm telling you, there's going to be so many more things that I feel like I am going to bring to the table from this book. I feel so oddly like connected to this woman. It's interesting. And so this is something that okay. So there's 2 other parts that I want to read for you. And then I'm going to leave you with a little bit of spiritual homework, and then we're going to call it there. Okay. Does this start? Here we go. Okay. So again, this is this idea of like multiplying, that you get to decide what you multiply, right? So let's preach the dangers of multiplicity. The problem is particularly and essentially a woman's. Distraction is, always has been, and probably will always be inherently in a woman's life. We can understand. I loved this. With a new awareness, both painful and humorous, I began to understand why the saints were rarely married women. I'm convinced it has nothing to do inherently. I'm convinced it has nothing inherently to do, as I once supposed, with the chastity or children. It has primarily everything to do with distractions. It is more basically, how do we remain whole in the midst of the distractions of life? How to remain balanced no matter what centrifugal forces tend to pull you off center. How to remain strong no matter what shocks come into your periphery and tend to crack the hub of your wheel. So what's the answer? There is no easy answer. There is no complete answer. And she says, I only have clues, shells from the sea. Total retirement is not possible, and I cannot shed all of my responsibilities. I cannot permanently inhabit a desert island, and I cannot be a nun in the midst of my family life, nor would I want to be. The solution for me surely is neither in total renunciation from the world, nor in total acceptance of it. I must find a harmony somewhere alternating between the rhythm of these two extremes, a swinging of the pendulum between solitude and communion, between retreat and return. And in my periods of retreat, perhaps I can learn something to carry back into my worldly life. I can at least practice these for 2 weeks, the simplification of outward life as a beginning. I can follow this superficial clue and see where it leads. Here, I can try. So, again, sorry, I kind of stumble. It was written in 1955. Not really the way that we speak anymore. But essentially, so much of what she's saying is like, okay, again, when I wanted to share all of that with you, because when you look at this, how do I simplify to multiply? When I